When we discussed gathering real-world evidence from the patient community as a topic on the steering committee, I knew that there was a few projects that MPN Research Foundation had spearheaded that would be appropriate. Our own MyMPN patient registry, and also the patient-focused drug development meeting, which we held with the FDA. But first, before I get into that, just a reminder that the MPN Research Foundation was founded by patients who wanted to get involved in funding research for the MPNs. This is a quick little infographic on the impact that the foundation has had in terms of research funding since it was founded about 20 years ago now. The foundation funds internationally through both open requests for proposals, such as the MPN Challenge Grant or MF Challenge Grant, which was our first foray into targeted research and open RFPs, as well as targeted projects such as Progression Network and Interferon Initiative. Details of all of these can be found on the website mpnrf.org. But the central tenet of the foundation has always been that patients had a place at the table when it came to research. Not just passive recipients, but their urgency and insights could direct investment and set priorities. The advocacy with pharma that the foundation did it all sprang out of research funding, as that is the logical conclusion of so much of what is funded, even basic science. The goal was to get the research and the results of the research into the lab, where it would, of course, be tested and considered as a future therapy or even cure for an MPN. And MPNRF's work with pharma always involved sharing the patient perspective. But there wasn't always a direct line between what patients were sharing and the development of more patient-centered clinical trials with endpoints that spoke to all of the parts of living with an MPN. So there, the foundation saw a need for advocacy and to move beyond funding research as the only principal activity that they would be working on with regards to creation of new medicines. Now, for those in the United States, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, is the body that approves medicines. The foundation's relationship with the FDA had in the past mostly been somewhat reactive or responsive, such as when a drug was approved or a trial suspended, which unfortunately we know all too much about in this community. But we sought to change all that because as we were experiencing when patients would share their perspectives with us, they had a lot to say and they needed a lot more than what was currently available in approved therapies or even coming down the pipeline with clinical trials and development. Just like with funding research, it was time to find a seat at that table as well. But what was less clear was what exactly the opportunity would be. Enter the need to expand our advocacy work and have it be specifically around ways that we collect the patient voice systematically and share it with other members of the community who are making decisions about medicines and clinical trial development for MPNs. I've listed here 2 complementary initiatives that we launched. MyMPN, which is the patient-reported registry that was launched in 2017, and an externally led patient-focused drug development meeting on MPNs, which was held in September 2019. The goal was to see more options for patients. And this piece of advocacy work was to systematically collect and share the information we've been hearing from patients over email, on the phone, in social media, at patient meetings, and share it in such a way is that it would be relatable to our health authorities and decision makers. So in this slide, I have some pictures of panelists who were part of the patient-focused drug development meeting, and they were the group that was selected to give their first-person testimony of living with an MPN. The meeting was split into 2 sections, one where the people shared their experiences living with an MPN, and the other section broadly about their experiences with the current therapies available for MPN. And just so you know, the PFDD meeting in its entirety is available on YouTube and on the foundation's website, mpnrf.org, so you can watch it yourself and see what they said. I will make sure to drop all the links to this as well in the post-meeting material so that it's easy for you to find it. In addition to the panelists, of which there were a total of 11, there was also a survey done before the meeting where there was over 300 responses. And there was also about 30 people in person who participated in this meeting, and about 150 people participated online. So we used multiple streams of data, and we selected the panelists to be as representative as possible of the wide spectrum of experiences of those with MPN. It was a one-day meeting, and it was impossible to ensure that we collected literally every single experience that anyone with an MPN has ever had. But we really did put a full court press effort into doing this, and this is why we had multiple streams of data. We didn't want to only rely upon the in-person panelists or only rely upon surveys. We wanted to give the broadest spectrum possible of what the experience of living with an MPN looks like for these people. And it was really important for us that we were not trying to say that this one way of experiencing MPN was what everyone goes through. We know that this is a very heterogeneous disease, and people can have different experiences. Now, about the meeting itself, you only have one chance. You only have one shot at the meeting. So it's really important to get as much out there as possible about the patient experience. And it's also a reason why it's really important to engage as many stakeholders as possible. So I've just listed the people that we engaged for this activity, and they were all really instrumental in their own way of broadening our perspective and making sure that we were representing and understanding the environment that we were stepping into. And I would really suggest, this kind of activity with any initiative that you want to begin. Don't just assume even if you're someone living with something, you might not have the experience that can speak for all. It's really important to continue to ask and find out what else people are going through. We didn't just speak to academic researchers. We do definitely work with industry, and we ask them about the agenda in an appropriate way for this meeting. MPNRF years ago developed really strong ethics principles so that they would be able to work with industry and really any stakeholder in the community that's working on behalf of the patients. And the foundation has always felt that it's really their obligation to create a relationship with everybody so that they can be a true advocate in all senses of the word. The culmination of the PFDD meeting is really in the publication of the Voice of the Patient report, which will be shared publicly and with the FDA specifically. This document is meant to capture what is reported at the meeting itself, but it really is a springboard for further work on what the patients are dealing with that is not yet addressed by current drug development. And with a chronic progressive disease like MPN, it will take a whole community effort to champion the kinds of initiatives and research that will be necessary to address everyone's disease burden. The report will hopefully be used as a reference or a guide for the regulatory community, but also for industry. And, in a lot of ways, again, it's like a jumping off point for other work. It creates the basis to explore additional endpoints that can offer relief to the patients. We could have, called the FDA and said, oh, we would like a meeting. We have something to say. We're hearing this from patients. But with just the anecdotal information from the people that are reaching out to us, it doesn't hold as much strength as through this framework of the PFDD meeting or through a systematic data collection exercise like my MPN, which I'll talk about in a moment. And we certainly hope that this kicks off new ways to work with the community, especially in co-creating additional endpoints that are meaningful to the patient community. And now I want to touch on the registry, which is called My MPN. And I'm not going to be able to cover the whole thing in the time allotted, but I want to, again, encourage you to go to mpnrf.org where you can learn about it. And also I'll give my contact information so I can put you in touch with anyone there that might help you. There's a lot to this project. Let me just start with recognizing the steering committee which is such an important body to have with you in this kind of initiative. This is a group of people who really know the space, both from the research and the clinical perspective, and they were there to help us with both the creation of the surveys as well as the selection of the platform, of how we created data access policies. They helped us think about this, not just from the patient advocate perspective or the patient perspective, but also gave us like the downstream use of the data perspective, and that was just enormously helpful. Right now, the registry is only for U.S. participants per the protocol. There's a lot of different options for different platforms that you might be able to use, but it's important to really do your homework with what kind of technology you use to support this. There's some off-the-shelf options that patient advocacy groups could use, including some that are either free or low cost. So there's really a way for everyone to get started. I want to give a special mention to Robin Scherber, who was absolutely instrumental in helping us with this project. And she did it all pro bono, working with Lindsay tirelessly, both on the day-to-day of the registry and also in the publications that eventually came from this platform. And speaking of publications, here are some publications and meetings where data from My MPN were presented. And again, we're really proud of this because, from an upstart idea of collecting patient-reported information, there was some skepticism about whether we could do it in a way that was really rigorous. But especially with the help of our steering committee and their partnership, we were able to prove that this was a good data set. It was a clean data set, and it definitely tracked compared to other clinical registries such as the Hopkins 500, which I think is the Hopkins 1000 now, that Dr. Moliterno holds. But these were some of the meetings that the data were presented at. And, I think the thing that what we're really supposed to be focusing on here is this is a way to collect the patient experience and really hopefully create some hypotheses and create some ways of thinking about MPNs in a new way. Too often we hear about the patient being, older person or, maybe, male or whatnot. But, this really kind of broadens the perspective of what it is to be a person with an MPN and helps us as a jumping off point for, again, finding additional endpoints that might be useful. Or if there's, maybe an idea about something that might be helpful for the patients, maybe this is a tool to help find ones that might participate in a clinical trial. So there's a lot of benefits to the patient community in patient advocates embarking on this kind of project. Some advice that we can offer for anyone who is embarking on registry data collection or collecting patient data in general is, there's been a lot of people that have come before you. So happily, they've probably encountered a problem that you've experienced. So help is out there. So take heart in that and really lean on your allies and your partners, whether within the MPN space or blood cancers or other disease groups altogether. We definitely talked to just dozens and dozens of other patient advocacy groups that had launched registries, that were thinking about registries, that were thinking about biobanks. And all of that information really helped us along our way. And now we are, in turn, making sure that we can share out with what we have learned. So, ask your friends, ask your peers, and, reach out to me or to anyone in the foundation as well. And I'm sure they'd help guide you. I want to also just give a shout out that, registries are hard and data collection is difficult and it can be imperfect, but it's a very worthwhile endeavor. The people living with the condition are uniquely qualified to share what they experience and what they need. And I really hope to see a continued evolution in the platforms that are available to the patient advocacy groups that, we could use to collect the data, such that, they're comfortable to use across all demographics and across all technology. And, really to see a way that the whole global community can come together at some point and really create a really large, robust data set of patient experiences that can be used to really understand what patients need and how to help them now. And, of course, I am biased because I come from patient advocacy, but I think that the patient advocates are the ones that should be driving this. It needs to be in the hands of, a mission-based organization that, is first and foremost interested and concerned with the good of the patient, and that's their guiding light. And here is my contact information. And if you have any follow-up questions whatsoever, it would be my pleasure to either answer them myself or put you in touch with someone that might be able to help you. Thank you very much.